this is a book that is very near and dear to my heart. What we are looking at here is the physical form of Degenesis, Rebirth Edition. Degenesis is a tabletop role-playing game designed by the minds, or at least published by, I believe it's Six More Vodka. Six More Vodka is I don't know if it's a boutique, but it's a concept art creative studio out of Berlin, Germany, I believe. The reason why this book is near and dear to my heart is for many, many reasons. I have been following the creation and production of this for the better part of a decade. This book is now out of print. I followed the creation of it more from an aesthetic point of view. I had no desire, and I wasn't looking for a new tabletop role-playing game to play. I just knew the production value, the quality of the book, and as you'll see in a moment, without a doubt, it's not even close. It is the most beautiful tabletop role-playing game that I have ever seen. I made a video on this book, and I may have thrown out some pictures of the PDF file. This, in its glory, is the physical book. There is something, especially when you get into bookcraft, quality, craftsmanship, art of this level, there's something to be said for having a physical book in your hands, right? I mean, how many of us have looked at something like D&D Beyond, but there's something about having that alternate artwork cover of Eberron, and you sit there in your bed or on your couch and you have your coffee or your beer and you just crack open that book and you smell the pages. You feel the texture of it, right? There are many books, when they're well designed, they have an embossed font on the top. They have maybe a velvety sort of parchment. The paper feels different. These are all things that you will never get digitally, right? It's the same reason why it feels different to take notes into a notepad file on your computer versus journaling with a pen and paper and hearing the scratch, that tactile feeling. Now, the reason why I just went over all of that and why that's so important to me is because this book has been out of print. It's extremely difficult to find, and when you do find it, it is prohibitively expensive. I bought this on eBay. I believe it was the last one because, for a couple of reasons, I think the book was initially released in German. Now, based on the title, not Degenesis, because no matter what language, it says Degenesis, and it's written just like that, the title logo of the game. That says Rebirth Edition in English. I'm hoping, and I did confirm through email, that I got the English edition because this was purchased on eBay, and I don't think there's any refunds. With shipping, these two books cost just over $200. Remember, we are talking about, in my opinion, the greatest, most beautiful interior design, layout, and concept art in any tabletop role-playing book ever made. Now, I'm not going to speak necessarily to the efficiency of how does it run at the table, right? Like, how quickly can you reference things in the book? How usable is it? I'm just talking about as a coffee table book to sit back and just glance at. It's stunning. So you are paying for that level of quality. Each of these books, I believe, is something like 350 pages. So you are getting 700 pages of content. Now, there are many, many books in the Degenesis tabletop role-playing game line. And the great thing about them is if you go, I believe this is the website right here, degenesis.com, you can download every one of them completely for free. You sign up for a quick account. It takes you 30 seconds, 1 minute, and you can download all of them in their full PDF glory artistically. You know, you're not getting a print and play version where it's all just black and white. No, you're getting everything. But again, I wanted the physicality of that. I've had the PDFs for a very, very long time. Okay, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to purchase these. So I'm going to open it up for the first time here. It did indicate that this is new, so that's awesome, being that it's out of print and difficult to find. Brand new, it's 120 bucks. So I paid like another 90 bucks, because I actually think shipping was free, to get it, and it's been out of print for who knows how long, and hopefully it's the English edition. So here we go. I'm going to be super duper careful. That's gonna do it. I'm not doing any more. No more knife. They did a great job packaging it and putting enough bubble wrap that it does seem new. I am a sucker. Graphic design 101, guys. When you're doing fonts, layouts, there is something to be said for black and white. For the contrast of white on black. You'll notice a lot of that in here. There's a cleanliness to it. There is a word of warning here. The content in this book is adults. So take that as you will. Okay? I am not here to speak to... I've given you the warning. If you're offended, it's on you. Alright? Degenesis Rebirth Edition. I know nothing about the game. I mean, a brief bit, but I don't really know where I should start. Whether... I think as I open them up, Primal Punk and Catharsis. So let's get this out of the slipcase. First off, let's talk to the book craft, the craftsmanship. This is built well. This is indicative and reminds me of one thing I've been purchasing a lot lately, which is a lot of Apple products. Who, hate them or love them, Apple is the go-to when it comes to packaging, efficiency, utility in their design. It's not on accident that many people try and emulate what Apple does. So this thing is super sturdy. So it's a nice white slipcase. There it is, 6 more vodka. Let's start with Primal Punk. They're both about equal in size. So over 300 pages. First impressions, it's just sort of a glossy cover. There's nothing embossed here. That feels a little more like the gloss is not on the logo. Degenesis. Primal Punk. I love it. It's just... I am going to gawk, ooh and ah, and basically be a little obnoxious and not shut up this whole video because I'm just enamored with graphic design, layout, craftsmanship. You know that. If you've watched my videos, you know that. And then when we actually get into the content, again, the visual of it, the aesthetics of it, not the quality of the writing and the story and how good of a role-playing game it is, right? Or how usable it is. Because I can't speak to that, but... I mean, let's just bask in this glory. Alright, here we go. First time. And the first time, you know what, I need to check, make sure it's in English. It is. I didn't waste $200. Here we go. You get a really cool map. Everything here, visually, I mean... You're going to notice when I release my Silver Rot World book, you may notice... I mean, let's be real, folks. It's going to be obvious that All Things Lich basically copied this damn book. But remember, my Silver Rot World book is going to be 100% for free. Degenesis Primal Punk. You live only once, but if you do it right, once is enough. A quote by Mae West. Christian Gunther and Marko Drzevic. Christian is the writer, the creator, you know, the brains behind the game itself. Marko is the art, creative direction, the book layout, craftsmanship, things like that. Published by his studio. A lot of special thanks. I mean, just so far it's interesting for me because it's the first time I get to hold it in my hands and I haven't been able to sit down comfortably with it. Like you sit in my bed at night and just turn on my little yellow glow lamp and just read and just leaf through this book. I know the content in here visually because I've watched or I've looked through the PDF. I'm not exaggerating, 200 times. Whenever I start designing my own writing, even for my own game, when I just want to hand out a handout or notes to my players, I look at the PDF over and over just to get some visual and layout inspiration. So I'm very familiar with this visually, but yet, I don't know, the experience is just different. You know, maybe it's like listening to a favorite musician and then going to their concert, right? It just hits different. So I'm going to see what I can do about the gloss and the glare. I apologize. Here's the black on white. I'm going to fix this for you. A little better. I mean, very post-apocalyptic world, right? So you're going to notice the grunge kind of the way that goes. The background, I mean, it's just like a mork board, which I may do a video on as well. It's just really pleasant to look at. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to turn off some lights real quick. I want to see, it's going to get darker, of course, but I want to see if it eliminates the glare. That's not really any better. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to hold this up like this. Layout is incredible. I know exactly what I'm reading about, the Rebirth. Columns justified to the right. Very small, very familiar in font size and sans serif or serif font. Something that you'd find in a player's handbook, right? Very, very tiny. Allows you to fit a lot of info. Whether that's like a milk splatter, but just every page has this. There's no just black page or white page for the most part. I mean, obviously these are. No, not really, because you got this little ghosted image right here. But for the most part, there's just this background. It's a visual texture, right? It just breaks up the eye. It's beautiful. Even the chapter, the chapter and the page number, there's a graphic design element just to that in and of itself. Beautiful transitions from color, black and white, to white pages or, you know, almost grayish pages with a little bit of grit and grunge behind it, and now black font. You have a delineation and a section that talks about what is a role-playing game, so separate information from this here, and it's laid out in another, but it's not just a black, you know, box. You've got that aesthetic, right? It just draws you in visually to what this world is trying to represent. Chapter 1, I mean, just the way that's laid out. The artwork is incredible. Double page artwork spread here. Okay, we're going to move ahead, and let's just start looking at some of this art. Borka. Oh, I almost bent my pages. It's pretty durable. I love these little blurbs, these quotes, where there's just... You've got sans serif, then you have serif font, you have capitals, you have bold, you have, you know, spacing, kerning, leading. You know, it breaks up the page. Not everything is exactly justified from one page to the next identical. They didn't just copy and paste page layout 101 from one page to the next and put different words on there. And also when you start getting into logos like heraldry, just logo design, graphic design 101, Illustrator level stuff, very readable, very distinct. Like you'll know, right? That was pollen. Let's find another. At a glance, Balkan, there's pollen. Balkan. Black and white. All in a circle, but yet the symbols are very if you saw that on a flag, you know exactly who you'd be dealing with, right? Or that it's different than where you previously were. That looks a lot like Marco himself to me. Maybe that's who it was. So there you have it. See? Another one. If I do a quick flip through, map in the back. I love little bits like this, just white page. Logo at the bottom. There's just something there, like it's making use of the space when it needs to, and other times it just is throwing a bunch of information down. The art is just, it's incredible, incredible. When you get into like charts and tables, right? I mean, it's broken out enough, well enough. I mean, yes, WotC has some incredible resources, but I'm a fan of Marco's art, and I've been looking at it for such a long time. this goes even beyond the art that I've seen. Yes, there's some amazing pieces in some of Wizards' books, of course, and their Magic the Gathering art's world class, but I mean, it's not an accident that Riot is using Six More Vodka and Marco's creative direction to draw for their, juggernaut of League of Legends. Right? I love also the reality of Marco has never really drawn, Final Fantasy cloud-sized swords, right? Everything is seemingly functional and practical. Like, they're post-apocalyptic. When you read about a certain group of people, you can tell this culture is surrounded by these materials, and as such, they make armor and weapons out of the available materials. And it reads that way. They're distinct. They stand out. I love that he represents, the designers represented every, race. And I think somewhere in the beginning they even talk about, they don't even refer to them as a race, right? Because you're dealing with a little more modernist, take on it. And they don't want to offend anyone of like, why are the terrible people, African or whatever it might be. But, you're getting male, female, it's showing genitalia, it's showing, again, you have to, tread lightly if you're offended by such content. But you also have to keep in mind, this is based out of like German and Berlin and Europe. Their stance on things are very different than Americans. You know what I mean? It's not gross and inappropriate at all. It's definitely not offensive to me. It's just real. It's gritty. If there's a race that talks about being, or a group, a culture that's naked and whatever, it will show in full glory all of the artwork to, that follows suit. But that makes it distinct. They're not playing it safe and being careful. They're trying to really get the grit and grime of this world and this story by saying this is what it is and give you a little bit that you might be able to relate to. I mean, look at that. It's incredible. Okay? Let's just get a different aesthetic a little bit. And maybe you'll still get the same black, white, and there's definitely a very, almost like a tan with concrete splotches, if you will, grit and grunge and grime. I believe from one book to the next, on all of the books. And like I said, you can download it for free, Degenesis.com. There's probably, I'm not kidding, 20 PDFs. Little lore books on certain sections or certain groups, certain cultures. I believe they did follow the pattern of the same sort of fonts, right? Like it has the sans serif and then the serif font. But otherwise, aesthetically, many of the books are going to have a little bit of a different look. So let's see if this other one, Catharsis, looks and feels any different. Cool double page spread of art. Again, has that same feel to it, right? Same people, same group, same people involved. Let me, there we go. See, it's kind of continuing. So here's, so that was the first book. Because this is only 2-3 pages in, and I'm on chapter 5. And yes, the aesthetic does stand out the same. Same kind of tan, grayish page with some background elements. A lot of logos and graphic design 101. Really cool and appropriate artwork. I just love it needs to be readable. I don't care how beautiful the pictures and the words and stuff are. And it is, because you just have this table fits in the box very nicely. You have a logo. You've got your words, it's bold where it needs to be. Things are separated well. The spacing, the column format, all of it. Chapter 7, Battle. I love kind of that blood, but yet it's obviously black and white, but it just has that paint splatter. I love those little textures and those feels, and it's crossing and crunching through the numbers like it's broken it up. And then you have the art that kind of leads to that direction. I mean, these things are not on accident. I love that you're dealing with weapons or whatnot, but you've got this little black and white. This could have easily just been a normal white line, like a stroke line, right? And then you have the words underneath it, but you have this line going across the top. But yet on some pages, when you have the heading, like it's smaller, you have the splatter in the corner, and then you have awesome artwork. Here it just says attack, but there's no line going across, but you have a logo. You have this little black spot. These pieces down here, this looks like that. Another Top of the page is all art. Bottom is just words, nice column format, a lot to read. Splatters and flash and flare, but not enough. It's definitely trickling into the font, but it's not enough to, you can't read it. Here, all black and white, very easily readable. Separates, Death of a Thousandfold. This is kind of a story or whatever you're reading through this, right? This section of different ways to die, drowning, suffocation, strangling, explosions, fire, falling, poison. But then now you have, notice, it's in the white. Healing and patching up. Black and white, death, horrible, ways of dying, ways of getting better. In the sections of black and white. I love this. You know, it's not quite Celtic knotwork, but it's just breaking up the monotony of the page. As you go down, it kind of stops you and gives you a border. And that carries over, so you know you're reading on the art of concession trade. This section has the border. The next page is talking the same thing, has a border at the top. But then when you get to the next part, now we're dealing with tech level. Different. You always have sort of a visual element, a logo. This is not necessarily like a mark of heraldry or something like this, but you're reading about tech level, but you see that symbol and it just allows us to attach two elements to it. That's just understanding in great detail the way the mind works visually, or the way the mind picks up images and what you remember. These almost have a 3D element to them, how they're created. That looks like 3D art, but I love the black and white, the silhouette of it. These are symbols of the different clanners, the different groups. This is a beautiful piece of art. And then you have just a chart, which looks very different. This is all sans serif, you know, kind of more modern font aesthetic. I love the little bullets on the side over there. Not creating bullet points, but just, it's giving us stuff in the margins, right? Little ghosted images over there. Bullet holes across the top. I mean, look at this. Oh, man, it's just so good. So, so good. Flash through a little bit of artwork real quick, and then we're going to wrap it up, guys. I mean, look at this. Psychokinetics. I love that it's laid out in this. Like I said, you are going to see this in full glory in my Silberot World book. I'm stealing, you know, I've looked at this so much, I can't not just create with this same visual aesthetic. I mean, look at this. Pragnoctics. The art is ridiculously good. Psychokinetics. Ferromancers. These are like the monsters of the world type of thing, maybe. Really, really look. I'm gonna, you know, Dushani. Really look at the art. I mean, the quality. That's the highest level of professionally drawn. Biokinetics. Marauders. But what I love is not just how well drawn it is, and yeah, that looks like an undead thing, the other thing looked like some abomination. Look at the cloth, the texture, the colors, their logo, right? Like, it all just screams to their culture and what they're about. There's so many visual elements. The only time I've seen art that rivals this in any books is like Warhammer Fantasy stuff, right? The Black Library. Warhammer 40K. The Sleepers. Looks a little more militaristic. Amsimos. Warforged, if you will. And I think that's it. Yeah, because these are just creepy-ass monsters. Leperos. Spore Beasts. I love just on its own page. Doesn't clutter it with anything. And even the background elements are very subtle. There's a little scratch over here of like texture, but that's it, really. It allows the art to just take center stage and really stands out. And it's simple layout-wise. This is the monster for that. Next page, that. If it doesn't fit on one page, you know? Notice the difference in diversity of groups of people, what they look like. That's creepy. Right? I mean, look at this. Just, you feel like you can, you know, arrive at this post-apocalyptic fort that someone's made and you can see these people. Right? You know kind of what you're getting into. Just their disposition, their demeanor. That is awesome. I mean, that's a witch doctor if I've ever seen one. I mean, you can take any one of these pictures and put this, lay them out, and there's a desktop wallpaper of some high-level concept art. The cockroaches. From hell. I mean, the Forbidden Zone. I'm sold, obviously. I bought it. So there it is, guys. I wanted to just kind of show you the spotlight a little bit in physical format on the wonders and the beauty of the Degenesis tabletop role-playing game. Here it is. Thanks for everyone for watching. I'll see you soon.